I learned from Bill Marriott early in my career. He was like, look, if you take care of the housekeepers, if you take care of the front desk agents, if you serve those people and support those people, then the Marriott hotel in which they work is going to be a terrific experience for everyone who comes there. And if it's a terrific experience for everyone who comes there, the investors are going to be fine.
So we got introduced to you, I believe, maybe a year ago from Tom Marston at Marston.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, at Marathon, and not at Marston. I mean,
right.
Marathon Tom.
Marathon Tom.
Marathon Tom Marston.
Yeah,
that's right.
And you grew up here?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Yeah, proud native. Born and raised in Virginia Beach, actually. Well, actually, born in DePaul Hospital, so right on the other side in Norfolk. But my family lived in Virginia Beach. My both my parents have military, so both my grandfathers served in World War II. You know, so deep roots in the community, deep roots here in Virginia. And when I graduated high school, I went to Salem High School, and I also went to Governor's School for the Arts for 4 years. So I went to Salem High School and got accepted at Virginia Tech, did 4 years. Well, supposed to do 4 years at Virginia Tech. Oh,
did you do 3?
Not a hokey?
5.
Yeah, right. Nobody does 3, buddy. Yeah. It's so good you just want to stay.
Well, my
you know what I'm
son's
saying?
at Tech right now. He's a rising junior. So.
All right, okay. Well, hopefully he'll do 3 years for you and for the pocketbook, buddy. But no. I think I set the record for most academic suspensions by a graduate in the history of that esteemed over 100-year-old university. I was not the best student at Virginia Tech, but when I graduated from Virginia Tech, I just sort of thought that I would never find my way back to Virginia Beach. You know, I mean, it was growing up here, my just prevailing perception was that, you know, there just wasn't a ton of opportunity here in the city of Virginia Beach, in the sort of 7 cities area. And, you know, joke's on me, boy, was I wrong, right? Because back in 2012, I was recruited by Goldkey PHR to come down here and run the revenue operation for the hospitality side of their business. And told my wife at the time, I was like,
where were you located when?
So I was in DC.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. There's a gap there, right? I wasn't at college till 2012. I can tell you that. But yeah, so I ended up I actually was, I got my degree in theater. So I wanted to be a professional actor. So I was in New York, I was in Chicago, LA, made my way back to DC in order to start an internship. 9/11 had just happened, and there's some, and also like, the sort of like tech bubble was bursting at the time. There was some shift in priorities for funding from the federal government. Long story short, my internship was unfunded. And so I had to get a job. So I got a job in the hospitality industry, working my way, like working as like an actor and a writer and a producer in training videos for companies like Marriott and Club Corp, etc. Parlayed that into some relationships at the Virginia Tech Hospitality School. Parlayed those relationships into a management level position for a hotel company that was headquartered in the DC area. So it was quite the pivot, you know.
Well, we're just for argument's sake, we're going to say all the exciting training videos.
That's right.
You did all of them.
That's right, 100%. And I did my own stunts too. I mean, like that's exactly right. I mean, I like carried a tray all by myself in several of those training videos.
Nothing like a guy, a thespian from Virginia Tech trying to oversell something that doesn't need to be sold.
Oh, no, I mean, like you're right. It does sell itself.
You walked
it does sell itself. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Was there like a glass of milk on it with like a
No, so
or something like
no, so it was like you're like a waiter in a training video, like you got to like come out and do one scenario,
right? Well, isn't that a Quentin Tarantino thing that he's always in at least one scene of his movies?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, I mean, so he and I had a little different career arc, But it got me into hospitality, right? And so I decided to leave the theater, and found out late in life, because I'm a dum dum, that there's not a lot of money in the theater, so
I'm assuming it's probably just a small fraction of the top. They're the ones that make all of it. Everyone else is just
even the top have a hard time making real money in the theater.
interesting.
Yeah, now film, most theater actors do a lot of voiceover work. They do a lot of TV work. I mean, I have dear friends who have great careers. They're my age and they've made their career in the theater, and they do a lot of, like, you hear their voice in video games and stuff, or whatever. But and they do TV work. They do regular TV work without being household names. So.
Why do you think you allude to the fact that there's not opportunities here?
Yeah.
Like when I moved here in 2007, I worked in TV, and a similar effect was like, why would you move to that place? So it was like negative from the jump.
Yeah.
Right. Like, why do you think historically this area has that kind of, like, just thought about it?
Yeah.
It's so off to me.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear you say that. Because, as a native from Virginia Beach, I think I grew up probably with the wrong opinion about it, and certainly have learned otherwise since I relocated back here. Told my wife when we moved here, because she's a Dallas native and from Texas. Yeah. She's from Texas and had never lived at the beach, and like really wanted to live at the beach. That was a big reason why we said yes and took the job and moved down here. My son had just been born. He was just a few months old. And we wanted to live somewhere where we could be a single income family, which we could not in Bethesda, Maryland. We could not. And so we took the job, moved down here. And I told her, though, I was like, look, this is kind of, with what I do in the hospitality industry, this is the only company that can offer us the kind of opportunities. And if I lose this job somehow, we're moving. That's what I told her.
That's the deal. I think the unlock is, and the people have this impression in your mind, just like you, in the sense of, if I come to Hampton Roads for this one job and lose that job, then what am I going to do? I'm going to be forced to move. And I think that's where a lot of people have hesitation to either want to come back after school or relocate here. We have to do a better job of telling that narrative. There's many of opportunity here.
Agreed. And I'll tell you, I mean, on that, and and I promise you, it's taken me forever to answer a very simple question you asked me, which is why do people have that perception? And I think that, so when we had that perception, right, when we moved here, the reason we had that perception is because at the time there was, I had read some studies. I'm not saying that there was like national headlines about it or anything, but then the region was known in the state for brain drain. It was just known as a place that retains its high school dropouts and loses its college graduates. And at the time, some studies had come out and been published that we were a leading MSA for brain drain nationally, and so I had the perception when I came here, if things don't work out at Goldkey PHR, we're gonna have to move. That's just all there is to it. Now, I left actually Goldkey PHR in 2018. Here it is, 2026. I'm CEO of a tech company, and I'm here. And there's, not only is this area, I think, a great place for somebody like me, not just because I grew up here, but because I'm raising a family here. And it's such a wonderful place to raise a family and have a work-life balance and find things that are really wonderful for your kids to do. I mean, like, I can't even imagine raising kids in a better community, in a better area than the Tidewater area, frankly. But not only is it a great place in that respect, but work is going so remote now. It's like, why not live at the beach? Right. And why not live in an area where, because of the power of the tourism industry and the revenue that's generated by the city of Virginia Beach from people who don't live here, that can then get invested here, you have an outsized quality of life for what you pay in taxes, which, who can say that? We can say that,
I have so many questions, but I don't want us to get 45 minutes into the show, and we don't even talk about what it is that you do.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're CEO of a tech company. Talk to us about that.
Sure. Yeah.
And then I want to.
No, I love to.
This is great. I'm noticing Tim is matching your behavior. He's getting all excited about it. I love it. It's like play with the guy, right? Thespian, right? Like,
Yeah. Okay. Maybe so. I don't know. No, but I love the vibe. I mean, I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Ian, you got to keep me on track, man. I'll yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm CEO of a company called Resolve. And we are Resolve Financial Solutions, but we do business as Resolve Medical Bills. So our website's at resolvemedicalbills.com. And in a nutshell, we are a technology solution that allows everyday Americans who are saddled with more medical bills than either they think are fair or than they can ever hope to handle.
Isn't that the number one leading factor to bankruptcy?
Yes, number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is medical bills. And I mean, it is, I think I'm 50 years old, right? And the one thing that I've done repeatedly in my career is I've worked for wealthy people and I've helped them get wealthier. And I feel really good about my career and about the things that I've done and the places I've worked and the people that I've learned from. And I don't really have a bad thing to say about any of them. And purpose has been hard to come by. A real sense of just like aligned purpose with what I do. It no longer is. I can tell you that because I get to work every day on a problem that is genuinely affecting people in ways that ruin their life. And we get to work with those people. We get to solve those problems for them. And 100% of our business model allows us to leave everyone in the ecosystem better than we found them. And I think that's a really rare and unique opportunity. And it's absolutely what drew me to Resolve to begin with.
Well, I'm glad that you find that as motivating because at the same time, I just to see clients every day that you talk to that they're just down on their luck at this point. And like they're coming to you to help.
Yes. And I mean, and it's so my dad's an entrepreneur. He sold his business, but he started a business here in Virginia Beach, working class guy, but a really smart guy, a hardworking guy. And it was a wind, fire, water damage restoration business. And it was the first of its kind here in Virginia Beach. I mean, we need that here, as you know. And so the one thing that was always really clear to me about his work and what he told me, because I worked for him as a very young person, through high school. And he was like, look, we're dealing with people, at the worst time of their life, and so our job is not just about like solving the problem of kind of putting their homes back together after they have a fire or a flood or some massive water damage, but it's also to just listen to them. And I thought that was really remarkably emotionally intelligent, and that is I think that's the sort of prevailing ethos, I guess, that we want to have at Resolve too, is just a recognition that our clients are coming to us usually just bereft of hope and choices and options and like, where do we go? What do? We feel like we have been punished and victimized by the system in many ways. And not to mention the fact, had the worst thing happen to them probably in their lives, many of them.
For sure. I mean, diagnosed with cancer, or you have to have quadruple bypass surgery or whatever the case is. Yeah, I mean, that you're dealt a really crappy hand.
That's right. And
you can't.
To add insult to injury, now you've got these bills.
Right.
And even people who feel like they've got insurance.
You can't shop around for the lowest deal. I mean,
that's
a lot
right.
of the times you've got to.
That's right. That's right. And so that's what we say no one should ever go bankrupt from a bill they didn't choose. You know what I mean?
That's super powerful.
Yeah. And that's sort of the day-to-day at Resolve. And medical advocacy is not a new industry. medical advocacy has been around for decades. The difference today is that technology has enabled us to do medical advocacy at scale that has never before been achieved or even contemplated. So you could actually have a medical advocacy business and have it be really good business, so doing well by doing good in the medical advocacy space is actually a possibility now.
Did healthcare get to this point because the insurance company is the customer and not the patient?
So I'm not a healthcare expert.
Right.
I don't want to, never want to, get over my skis on a question like that. I have opinions and I'm dangerous with opinions. But what I can tell you is that medical bills are not for patients. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like nobody gets a medical, and I don't
Right.
man, we got clients that are physicians that resolve. Think about that. We have clients that are physicians, and the medical bills they're a B2B, it's a B2B process. Right. It's a B2B set of documentation, and demystifying a medical bill, I don't care how smart you are, I don't care how educated you are. It is intimidating. It is overwhelming. And I do think that process is so alienating that it has led to real problems and toffee in the system for hospital bills getting paid, because the bill is bigger than you think it should be, always, frankly, and you can't understand it. You
Right.
don't understand
All the codes and
right. You get a bill. Think about it, right? You get some work done on your house and you get a bill, and that bill is broken down in time and materials, and you see what the materials are, and you can argue about how much the materials cost, but basically you could do some research and you could be like, okay, well, lumber has gone up in price, or, we got tariffs on steel, whatever, right? You could figure it out. And then you could argue with a tradesman over time. You're billing me for 6 hours, but I was here and you were here for 3 hours. Where are the other 3? Whatever. Medical bills are not that way. When you break it down into time, sometimes you're like, wait a minute, I was there for like 3 hours and this is an $80,000 bill.
it's crazy.
Help me figure that out.
Yeah.
And so I do think that the fact that the billing is set up to be reactive to an insurance company or to Medicare, for example, and not for a patient is a problem.
Yeah.
And if you're being billed as a part of like a massive group health insurance member, like an Aetna or United Health Group or whatever, you have one set of rates, and if you're Medicare, you have another set of rates. And if you're if you've got health insurance off the exchange, or if you're a small employer and you're doing the best you can for your employees and you just don't have the power of that negotiating, per unit price, it's still a different price. And so I think all of that is a real issue.
Well, and I think that the thing that's interesting too is, and I could be wrong because I'm thinking about this on the fly, but like plastic surgery for the most part is a cash operation. You don't file insurance claims with plastic surgery.
That's right.
Elective.
If it's elective, right? If it's cosmetic,
Yes.
and it's
But the
right.
billing stuff is very, to your point, it's very, this is what I'm getting done.
That's right.
This is how much it
It's
costs.
so straightforward, right?
Right.
Yeah, because exactly, because it is designed for a consumer, a commercial consumer, that's what it's designed for.
Have you ever asked when you go to like the doctor and you're like, can I get the non-insurance rate, and ask them what that is? Sometimes it's different. So like,
Is that a question?
Well, Centera now, I believe it's Centera. When you do blood, they have a blood rate for like the test that they will do. And it's like, this is $30, this is $40, this is whatever. But what gets billed out to insurance, like if you were to do it without it, it's a completely different thing. And like, she brings out this chart. Because it was when I got the Whoop, I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. They said that they will do a blood test for $150. I'm wondering what I could get for that. She goes, well, here is the Centera rate for the non-insurance. These are the things that you could pick out of that. But then when you go to the insurance and you see the breakdown that you can't understand, that's 16 pages. not only do you see a Coca-Cola there for $175, right?
He's not wrong. I mean, Zach, you're not wrong. I mean,
$3,000 to piss in a cup to get a little
I'll
blood out of it. And you're like, what are we doing? What?
no, you're not wrong. It is.
You could tell just by it, you need to drink more water, buddy. Come on, like, let's go.
If there is such a thing as a cash rate,
It's, yeah.
you know, and a cash rate is typically a better rate than the retail rate that goes to the insurance company before the insurance company starts doing their work, right? So you think about the system, you know, and Zach and I talked a little bit about this for the outstanding article, by the way, that Zach wrote about Resolve. It was, yeah, it really was. It was outstanding, but you know, because it's a really complex process, and Zach and I did not have a long conversation about it, but your ability to like articulate it, you know, a very, very difficult, you know, set of sort of decisions and effects that kind of led us to where we are now. I would just highly recommend anybody read Zach's article, you know, in order to get an understanding of how we are where we are, because basically what it is that we have a system where we are relying on the insured to pay for the uninsured, you know? And so retail rates for the insured continue to go up, which causes insurance to go up. Employers can't absorb 100% of the increases that go into insurance. They pass them along to they do the best they can. They pass increases along to their employees until their employees, by the way, can't afford them because insurance rates go up at a higher rate than pay increases. They're extremely inflationary. And so people fall off the rolls, become uninsured, get care, and now contribute to the same problem that forced them off the rolls to begin with. You know, and that's the snake eating its own tail of our system. And it is a death spiral. And we got to figure it out, man. We got to fix that.
That's where I'm like, I'm so thankful that you go to work every day motivated, because it can be really depressing if you're really
Yeah, and I will say, so yes, and we are motivated at Resolve. It is the most purpose-driven organization I've ever worked at, and I feel so blessed and thrilled to get to come to work with the people that inspire me every day. Because man, you know, they're there not because they make more money than they could somewhere else. Don't show them this, but they know they can make more money somewhere else. Yeah. They know there are other things they can do. You know, these are highly educated, highly qualified people, but man, they're called to do what they do, you know, because they make a difference, and they've all got their own stories and relationships with the system that have led them to be called to do what they do. But we can only do our small part. You know, we're not policy wonks. We're not elected officials. We're not industry leaders on either insurance or on medical care and services. You know, we're advocacy, you know, and so we're fighting the fight, and we're leveraging technology to do it at scale so we can solve more problems for more people than ever before. But we're responding to a broken system.
Right.
We're not fixing this.
I was thinking about that, just hearing you talk, that probably one of the most rewarding things would be if you're able to work yourself out of.
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that, because I've only ever really had jobs where I was trying to eliminate my job. You know, like when I used to work for Bruce at Goldkey PHR, I used to tell people all the time. So I was head of revenue, which means I led the marketing team and I led the sales team. The goal is to be so good at marketing that you don't need to spend any money on marketing, to be so great at the experience, to be so great at curating and delivering the experience that you're creating raving fans, and the raving fans are creating customers for you. And that's your flywheel. Yeah. You know, so that you're not going out acquiring new customers. Your customers are bringing you new customers, you know, and that's the job. I mean, like, if you're great at that job, which clearly I never was, as I always had one, you know what I mean? But if you're great at that job, you're working yourself out of a job. And I had somebody who is a partner of ours at Resolve the other day tell me, you know, if the government, he has a political leaning. He does. And he was like, you know, if the Democrats get elected, this is just what he said. If the Democrats get elected, your company's going to go out of business. I was like, well, I don't care who gets elected. I need to see our government do something. That's right. I need to see them actually successfully do something. I don't care which party. I need to see them prove they can do something before I'm super worried they're going to resolve that business, frankly. But I don't know that that would be such a bad thing for me or for the company or for our investors. I mean, every one of us want to see this problem solved, you know?
You lead a remote team.
I do.
How old is Resolve, by the way?
So Resolve was founded in 2019.
Okay.
I was hired as CEO. The company pivoted and it was recapitalized with a new investor a year ago.
Yeah.
A little more than a year ago. So I was brought in about 11 months ago.
Okay.
To be CEO.
So it's about 7 years old.
Yeah.
When it started, you weren't involved at that point. Was the company remote at that point? Has it always been fully remote?
Yeah. So that's a great question. The company really has always been fully remote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because remote was a thing for a while.
Yeah. Going into,
you know,
yeah.
Then the old Coco happens and it obviously accelerates remoteness and becomes a thing. Like, you are a very gregarious guy. You're very animated.
I am.
And you've always had careers where it seems like you're in front of a lot of individuals. How do you manage a team behind a screen where before you would have done that, you know, face to face like this?
You know, it's a great question. For all the reasons that Zach has already identified, Zach's got me pegged, right? For all the reasons that Zach has already identified, I thrive in a face-to-face environment. You know, I have a desire to co-work and to, you know, co-work together. And that's never gonna, I shouldn't say never, but that's unlikely to happen at Resolve because we are a remote team.
I'm hoping that you're going to sell Virginia Beach to the point that everybody
Look,
wants to go.
trust me, this is going to be the answer to the question, Zach, is like, I don't know. But every time I get on a conference call with these guys, I'm like, don't you want to live in Virginia Beach? You know, wouldn't you like to just pick up stakes and relocate to Virginia Beach and let's just get in like a real office in Virginia Beach and like, you know, like get it done. And certainly our investor, when he brought me on, he was like, you know, he was like, the headquarters is going to be in Virginia Beach unless you tell me you want to move. And I was like, no, I mean, I'm living in Virginia Beach. So headquarters will be in Virginia Beach. He goes, do you want to bring the team to Virginia Beach? And I was like, well, do you think they'd come? And he was like, well, you tell them they got to come.
Right.
And I was like, well, I'm not doing that. You know, like that's the last thing I want to do is force everybody to like uproot their lives and they hate me before they know me. But he is open to, you know, our lead investor is open to, you know, just growing in Virginia Beach.
Yeah. So with that, is the cost of living here versus outside of the areas that your employees are, is Virginia Beach still
it's
cheaper?
It's so from a return on investment, quality of life standpoint, there's no question. You know, our head of technology is in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. You know, we have advocacy team leaders in the Seattle area, which is extremely expensive, as you guys know. And also New Jersey, our head of operations is in New Jersey. So we're, you know, and then we've got team in India and team in the Philippines that work on our automated systems. But yeah, so yeah, Virginia Beach is from a cost of living standpoint and from a quality of life standpoint for what you pay in taxes, Virginia Beach is hard to beat.
It is just interesting because normally we're used to hearing folks that live here and work remote to another company as opposed to you being headquartered here where your employees are remote outside of this area. So that's an interesting paradigm shift.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I'm in a unique situation because, you know, I took the job as CEO and so the company's going to be headquartered just wherever I was going to be. And I had an opportunity if I wanted to be like, yeah, I want to be somewhere else. Let me live in Chicago, New York, or DC or wherever. But no, I mean, this is where I live, you know?
When we met originally 18 months or so ago, you were at that other company at that point. and then you make the decision. I think you were potentially going to acquire, that company was going to acquire this.
That's right.
In some capacity. And you got the opportunity, you got the call, hey, maybe you can be kind of the CEO of this business net. Like, how do you have those conversations with yourself, with your spouse, with your family, thinking with the company that you're currently with? Like, how do you start to say like, well, I like where I am now, but I don't have meaning, right? Like, that's the one thing you had said earlier is like you're always looking for purpose. Like, how do you come to the conclusion, like, this is something that I can do? This might be the first company you've ever actually been a leader with.
This is my first position as CEO.
Yeah. So how do you kind of go through all those, like, pros and cons to figure out like, this is something I can do. It's what I want to do. How do you come to be?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's okay. I can mention the company, right? Yeah. So I was the chief revenue officer at FinFit. And FinFit is also a purpose-driven company. It's a financial wellness fintech. You do get that sense, when you work at FinFit that you are, helping people to in times that are very difficult for them. And so there was Resolve's got some differences from FinFit that I think make it a little more sort of uniquely purpose driven than maybe FinFit is. But at the end of the day, the overall mission, the financial wellness mission, is the same. And so the inclination towards advocacy and helping people in financial difficulty stabilize themselves. I just look at the financial the sort of insolvency in the American working population as an existential threat. I just do. We look at what happened with COVID, and we had to basically print a couple of $1 trillion because Americans couldn't go without 2 paychecks, and that's not the fault of Americans. I mean, I've seen all the research on this because of the time that I spent at FinFit. It is a structural issue. I mean, our system is designed and developed and built. I mean, we make more money on interest than we do interest in healthcare. We make more money on those two things than we do any other industry in the country. And so that's our foundational bedrock, right? And so working people need to know how to exist inside of an ecosystem that can feel very predatory. And that's your call. That's at FinFit. That was the problem we were focused on. And so it was rewarding work. I didn't mean to imply that it was not. It really was rewarding work. And to your point, Zach, FinFit did really well, and it was a hard place to leave because we were growing. While I was working there, and things were going great, and we were signing up terrific, the who's who, the Fortune 500 or FinFit clients, and but I saw an opportunity with Resolve to acquire Resolve. I thought we should acquire Resolve at FinFit. We ended up having slightly different priorities than that. I think the CEO and the board were interested, but just timing wasn't right. But I got to know Resolve, and I got to know the leaders at Resolve through that process. And I think that was the reason they reached out to me, as you say, Zach, rightly so. When they were looking for a CEO, they remembered me, remembered my interest in the company, reached out to me. We had those conversations, and now I have to have a conversation at FinFit, right? Because I've decided that I'm going to make this change. And, I'm divorced, so I didn't have to have a conversation with my spouse, fortunately, because who knows how that would have gone. But I did have to really, really think through. I'm leaving what is a really pretty stable environment where we are growing and we're accumulating a lot of value inside the enterprise through the efforts that we're putting forward. And this is just a risk, right? Because it's less stable, and we're changing the go-to-market from a direct-to-consumer go-to-market to a business-to-business go-to-market.
Well, the other thing it's amazing to me is it's relatively easy to be the number 2, number 3 guy or gal in the company, and now all of a sudden you're number 1.
Yeah.
And you're leading the pack.
So I didn't realize that what you just said was true.
Until you're
in it, right? I mean, like, because when you're the number 2, number 3 guy, you're like, this guy's on easy street over here. No, I mean, you don't really think that. I mean, you see the work, right? I mean, nobody ever, I could tell you Dave Kilby is the CEO at FinFit. Nobody ever thinks that he's not under some stress. You know what I mean? And Bruce Thompson was the smartest guy I have ever worked for. It's just his raw brilliance was just kind of intimidating sometimes, when you're in a room with him. People skills, on somebody that smart can be a struggle, but man, I mean, like that guy taught me a lot. And Dave did too. So I felt ready. I really did feel ready. I felt prepared. And you're right. You can't really be prepared for the weight of the responsibility until it's on you. I always felt like every job I did, no matter what the job was, I brought like a founder energy to it. I've always felt like if I really want to be successful, I just got to throw myself all the way into something, or don't take the paycheck. If you're not willing to like look at it like it's yours, you're kind of stealing money. And at least that's the way I've always looked at it from myself. I don't put that value on anyone else. That's me. And so I always felt responsible for my team, for the people that I was working with, and to do the right thing for the people that I worked for. But this is different because, we're not a large team at Resolve, a little less than 20 people, but the livelihood of them, their families, it relies on me to be a prudent decision maker. And for me to always think about them before I think about almost anything else. Like, is this a decision that helps put our team and their families in a position where, they're going to benefit? And if it's not, then it's not the right decision.
Right.
Or if there's a risk that I don't feel comfortable with, then it's not the right decision, And so I do think about that before I think about investor returns, honestly, because I know the investor returns will come. I learned from Bill Marriott early in my career. He was like, look, if you take care of the housekeepers, if you take care of the front desk agents, if you serve those people and support those people, then the Marriott hotel in which they work is going to be a terrific experience for everyone who comes there. And if it's a terrific experience for everyone who comes there, the investors are going to be fine. And it is so much wisdom in that, but it's stressful.
Yeah. And you always have to be on.
Yeah.
You can't have a bad day.
Well, you try, but you try not to.
You try not to.
Yeah.
But there's just sometimes where you just don't, oh my gosh, I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah. You're not allowed to just not feel it. Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. You can't.
Yeah. I have like a couple of times in meetings, like kind of snapped a little bit, not like snapped and went crazy, but like snapped at someone. I'm like, nope, stop. We're moving on, whatever. And you also can't do that.
Right.
Because if people, they don't feel like they can talk to you, if they don't feel like they can be honest with you, if you don't get the benefit of their best thinking, then they're going to shut down, and every decision is going to be made in a vacuum, or you're only going to be told what they think you want to hear. That's the other thing about being in the job that I have now, is people are a lot less likely to challenge you than they were, and it is, I shouldn't say we all, because I don't know about everybody, but I thrive on dissent. Like, I must be disagreed with in order to feel confident in the decisions that I'm making. I just like to analyze a problem. And so cultivating a culture where people feel really comfortable and confident pushing back is really important.
What do you do in those situations to cultivate that?
Well, I I hope I'm successful. It's surreal, right? Because how do you know? You know what I mean? Like, but when I came into to the team, Zach. I have one-on-ones with everybody, and I just said, look, I know that I have it in me to be like pretty hard charging and hard to disagree with. And I just want you to know that I will never punish someone for disagreeing with me ever, no matter how I may take it in the moment. And, I think I take it okay. I think I've built that muscle to where I can be, as an actor, you're so collaborative all the time, and I was trained to be an actor for years and years and years. And so the creative process is extremely valuable to me. So I think I'm pretty good at it in the moment, but I let everybody know that if I'm not, you have my permission to challenge me, to always challenge me.
Well, and I think that,
and I hold myself accountable to it, Zach, and that's what I try and do.
Don't you want to have a debate with him?
well, no, but I think that that's where the whole yes and culture probably benefits.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
well.
Yes. It does. It does. You're right. I mean, like I do look at the creative space as a yes and space. And improv is such a it can be such like a magical way to unlock like individual quirks and silly situations and like these amazing kind of super normal events that could be delightful for people to watch, right? And so yes and is such an important discipline to cultivate to be successful in improv. It's also really important inside of a creative process, any creative process. And I think what we miss in business sometimes is how creative it must be.
Well, especially for you as a CEO, you're giving the strategic direction of the company.
Mm-hmm.
So you need people, you need your team who's getting direct input from your customers to relay whatever that you got to figure out what that strategic vision is. And the only way that you can do that is to pull that from your team, and they need to be comfortable to give you that information.
Yes. Yes, that's right. And, I tell people, it's different, right? Because as the CEO, I have two jobs, really just two jobs. And you just described both of them, right? One of them is strategy and the other is culture. Like those are my jobs. It's my job to make sure that we have a strategy, that everybody understands our strategy, and that it's aligned to outcomes. And then we measure the outcomes, and I leave it to others to create process and execute process to deliver the outcomes. And then if we need to evaluate and change strategy, we can, or we empower our people to evaluate and change tactics. And so how do you create a culture where all that can happen when you're not in the room? And that's what you're talking about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's creating that culture,
Right.
So it's not just about when people are dealing with me, but it's also about when they're dealing with each other.
You're a brand new CEO, learning everything about this company. You have to rely on the people the existing team that you're the new person now.
I know. That's exactly right. And I'll tell you, a wonderful mentor of mine told me like very early in my career, because as you can tell, I can be a little bit loquacious. I can be talkative. And he was like, Michael, it's like, God gave you one mouth and two ears. Let's use them proportionally. And like, that's really, really important. The more you progress in the leadership journey in your career, like it's disproportionately true for senior people to listen more effectively. I've always been somebody who's good at selling my ideas. But I had to learn to be somebody who is good at using input to build better ideas.
Which is interesting because you're one who wants to battle and to get that information, but that was a struggle for you to listen. Like how do you put those two together?
Well, yeah. So it's a great question, and maybe this is me more than others, but when I debate, I think I want to be right, and I prioritize being right instead of getting it right. You know what I mean? So it's ego, Zach. And it's like, I mean, for me, it's ego. It's so unimportant to the investors and the team at Resolve that I'm right. Literally doesn't matter at all. I could be wrong 50 times a day. I could be right 50 times a day. What's important is that we get it right. You know? And so I had to learn that even though I might be the senior person in the room or I might be somebody's boss, being right is not the same thing as having power. You know?
Yeah.
So being humble.
Well, and that's just it. And me, I am not, Zach knows this, I am not a real patient person.
Is that right? Because you seem like you're such a patient
I
guy.
can be. I
Okay.
can be.
Okay.
He's
But-
also very loquacious.
Is that right?
At the same time, I'm not.
I don't know what that
What-
word meant. So like, well, we're having a little like
Talkative.
like. I know what it is now.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah, because you know what I am, right?
because I'm like you in the sense of, I just want to get to it so that we can just move on. And so the biggest thing that I try to practice now is to seek to understand, then to be understood.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, having the patience within myself to understand before I want to start spouting out as to why that's right or wrong and why you need to listen to me, that is, it's paid dividends. And I still struggle with that. Seek to understand. Why do you feel this way? Why do we have to go about this way? And then take all those inputs to come up with the right decision.
Is it Stephen Covey with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? I think is that a Stephen Covey?
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I love that book. It's been a really long time since I read it, but you and I are probably about the same age.
Yeah.
So like that book, Jim Collins,
Yeah.
Good to Great. Yeah. With Level 5 leaders. I mean, like, also Jack Welch wrote a great book about leadership. I read those books all right around the same time, and they had a tremendous impact on teaching me to shut up.
Well, and I think a lot of it comes back to COVID in the sense of everybody being on a screen, in the sense that everyone's fighting to get their words in. And it's just like,
Yeah.
and I think that the people have developed really bad habits, and they stop listening, and they just want to get what they have to say out.
Is that
It-
right?
There was lag in there too, so like, the person now is
No,
like
you
4
go.
seconds.
No,
Like,
you go. And it's like,
you're muted, Tim.
No, that's right. That's right. And I think, but do you think so? Can I say back to you what I think I heard you say, just to make sure I understand? So you think that COVID and the sort of remote environment and the prevalence of video conferencing has made people less inclined to listen?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
it just, I don't think that,
Would definitely comprehend too, right? Listening and comprehend are two different things.
like, people, I think they stop listening to wait so they can interject as to say the word.
Right. But if this is their phone, this is what they're doing. They're barely like to be able to comprehend that thing.
Yeah.
That book, by the way.
No, you're 100% right. If somebody is multitasking, then they're never comprehending,
Well, I read somewhere that you actually cannot multitask.
No, you can't. I saw a
You do
lecture
one
from
thing.
I saw a TED talk from a neurologist.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah. And it's not possible. The brain can't actually do it,
Which makes sense.
Mhm.
If I'm trying to focus, it's hard for me to even listen to music and do a thing at the same time.
Right.
So when people can have like 19 screens, I'm like, all right.
I'll work on like some of our, like when I'm doing our P&L reconciliation or if I'm doing our forecast or whatever, a lot of that is just literally putting numbers from one spreadsheet into another and then letting it calculate and then going back and check it, whatever. Anyway, who cares what that is? But anyway, it can feel very tedious. And so I will listen to podcasts while I'm doing that sometimes. And I will always have to go back and re-listen to the podcast. I'm like, it's just becomes white noise in my head, even though the work that I'm doing is tedious and doesn't require a ton of thinking on my part. The little bit that it does require means I'm at it. I'm Jenga that podcast.
Do you think that, I gotta articulate this the right way. Do you think that medical bills is something that America wants to be fixed, or at least like on a big high level?
Oh, can I tell that? This is what a great question. So I, I think if we polled the American people, I think 9 out of 10 of them would say the medical billing system needs to be fixed, or the amount that we pay for medical care or that is billed for medical care is a problem and needs to be fixed. I have no basis in fact for that. It's just my opinion. This is my opinion.
Right. But then on the top side of that, the people who actually are the ones who pay for that thing to happen, do you think they want to fix it?
So
that's why you have a
right. So it's like a que bene, right? Who benefits? I mean, the system's the way the system is, and the consumer is not benefiting, and so who's benefiting from the system being the way it is? And so the presumption, I guess, is, well, the insurance companies must be benefiting because they're having billion-dollar quarters, right? Multi-billion-dollar quarters, or the medical services industry must be benefiting because they're charging $1,800 for a Coke, or like whatever, right? I mean, like
there was ice with it.
There's ice with it. So yeah, so maybe it's $1,600 for the Coke, right? But yes, I mean, like, so you look at, you're like, well, somebody's got to be benefiting in this, and doctors are well paid in the United States versus other places. I mean, our doctors do make more money. It's the reason why we get the best from all over the world into the United States is because our doctors are paid better. But at the end of the day, man, I have yet to meet somebody, and I've met a lot in the last 11 months who are in the system, in leadership roles, Centera and other places. And nobody loves the system. Nobody feels like the system is operating, but it's a very difficult fix because there's so much public interest in it now with Medicaid and Medicare that it's impossible to extract policy from healthcare. So it's like, how do you have a policy-driven solution that benefits the private sector? Because the more the policy-driven solutions emerge, they are disproportionately benefiting the consumer versus the private sector. And the private sector must have growth. And where does that growth come from if not from the consumer? Right? And so it's a very, very difficult challenge, or a very difficult problem to solve. What I like about what we do, and as I mentioned earlier, and again, we're not solving the problem, we're just reacting to it, but we do leave everyone in the ecosystem better than we found them. So maybe there is a seed of an idea in what Resolve does and how to fix the system. It'll take somebody a lot smarter than me to figure that out, because we truly are a win-win-win environment. The patient obviously wins. We generate about 70% average savings. Unless we can put somebody in a financial aid situation, even if they don't necessarily qualify by letter of the law, we can sometimes work a financial aid angle into a hospital and get people approved. In that case, our percent of savings jumps up to over 95%. In many cases, just 100% of your bill. We saved somebody just a few weeks ago, $270,000 medical bill wiped away, zero, cost $99. He paid to Resolve $99.
See, like that, I can't even comprehend that.
I know, it's amazing, right? Now I'm using that example obviously because it's an outlier. Okay, I don't want to pretend that that's the way it always goes, but it went that way for him. And so, but on average, we save 65 to 70% for people, and then so they're left with a hospital bill, but it's 35% of what it was. They pay Resolve maybe 10% of what we find them in savings. Maybe less because we do cap it at a certain amount. So, the guy who has 270,000, he qualified for financial aid. And because he qualified for financial aid, his bill to us was $99. That's our commitment to people who are living at the federal poverty level threshold. They'll never pay more than $99 for us to solve any bill. But even if his bill, even if he wasn't, and we solved it for 270, our cap kicks in way before we charge him $27,000. So he would never pay that much. Nobody would ever pay that much, but they pay Resolve a percentage of what we save them. And the hospital, instead of going multiple years through a lengthy collections process where maybe they will get paid, and when they do, it's pennies on the dollar, they get a resolution, that is in some instances 30 percentage points higher than what it would have been. Yeah, it's a discount, but it's not zero. And in many instances, they're having to write off zero balances. And so because we are recovering dollars at premium for hospitals, we're actually increasing the likelihood that medical bills won't go up next year, right? Because we're generating some revenue for the hospitals. So we're also contributing to the overall ecosystem that way. And then on the insurance company side, yes, in some instances, we do find that insurance companies have denied they've denied claims that they shouldn't have denied because we analyze BOEs. And when we find that an insurance company may have denied something we think they should have paid, we will appeal that denial and we will hold the insurance company accountable to a BOE. But in my experience, insurance companies will very quickly pay once it has been made very clear to them that they should not have denied a claim. They don't want to deny claims, although I know that that's that's sort of the prevailing sort of theme. It's just not what we've experienced at Resolve. What we've experienced is that they make errors like anybody else, and when they make them and we prove that they've made them, they correct them. And so more often than not, what happens is somebody will come to us with these medical bills and they will hate their insurance company. They'll just be like, why is my insurance company sticking me with this gigantic bill? And we will analyze the process and we will advocate on their behalf, which includes educating them that they got the exact payment from their insurance company that they should have by the terms of the agreement that they have. And so the insurance companies are actually helped from a relationship management perspective with their own clients. And we're like, okay, look, you do owe this. This is what you owe. The insurance companies settled their part. Right or wrong, now we got to roll up our sleeves and we got to fix this bill for you. Not on behalf of the insurance company, but for you, And so we really leave everybody better than we found them.
What advice can you give to future patients? Everyone's going to be a patient at some point. What advice can you give to people to be proactive?
Yeah, great question. That's a great question. You actually can have conversations about what things cost when you are receiving treatment. You can do that. It's uncomfortable, right? And oftentimes physicians, because they're physicians and not salesmen, or women, they're it's a weird conversation to have at a hospital with a medical care practitioner. I know, because I've been to them. You know what I mean? I've been to hospitals. I've had surgery. I get it. But you can have a conversation about what things cost and how you can afford them and what insurance is going to cover and what it's not. You can have those conversations, and I highly recommend doing it. With elective procedures, Tim, there are sites out there. As a matter of fact, we're thinking at Resolve about either acquiring or partnering with one that allows you to do price comparisons like it's Expedia for elective procedures. You put your zip code in, you put in what you want to get done, and they will cycle through the available physicians. And if you can put in who your insurance company is, they can also analyze your BOE and they can determine, well, maybe insurance will cover this or won't cover this, et cetera, in advance of getting an elective procedure done. So there are tools and sorry, I don't mean to go on, but AI is going to be a real game changer in this.
I was the whole time thinking, I'm like, we haven't even touched AI.
Yeah. So we use AI a lot, obviously, at Resolve as part of our solution. And I'm happy to talk about that. But to answer your specific question, we are not far away from being able to literally take your phone in and either open up your video app or whatever and literally just move it around your hospital room and be like, these are the procedures, and record it, upload it to a ChatGPT or to a Resolve AI and be like, this is what I'm being told needs to happen. This is what it'll spit okay, well, if that's what needs to happen, here's a cost of what that should be. Yeah, I mean, 100% of the technology I described exists today.
For sure.
It's just about putting it in the platform, So.
We need to have a part 2.
Oh, are we at time? I'm sorry.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I mean, this hour went really, really fast. There needs to be a part 2.
Okay. I'm happy to come back whenever you guys are ready for it, but.
Just because I really see that.
Yeah, well, there's the AI conversation is a fascinating conversation about this, but about every business, obviously.
Well, and I think that you all are you're a neutral partner in the sense of being a mediary between the hospitals, insurance, patients, government. I mean, like you all see all the information.
Agreed. What's Iron Man's AI? Jarvis? Is it Iron Man? Tony Stark's AI? Is it
I don't even know.
Jarvis or? Okay, so I'm the only Marvel nerd in here, but anyway. So
I have seen Iron Man.
Yeah.
I just don't remember.
So he's got that AI that basically does everything. Whenever he's in trouble, his AI just kind of kicks in and like saves him, right? But I really feel like what is required is medical advocacy, billing advocacy, hospital advocacy needs to just be that AI. It needs to be that job. And that's what we're working towards at Resolve, right? Anything that's related to your experience pre a doctor visit or a hospital visit, including the billing, the settlement of the bill, the negotiated settlement, the ultimate payment. Because if we know Tim's finances, his financial situation, if we understand what his BOE is from his insurance company, and we've got access to his medical records because we have his HIPAA on file, we can do 100% of that for Tim as Tim is going through his process.
I'm just sitting here thinking, like, as someone has a tax advisor, I would love to have someone like you be my medical advisor. So be like, as I age and as I start to have to go to different medical appointments, hey, I'm going to Resolve, and they're going to negotiate everything for me from the time that I walk in the door to the time that I walk out of the door and I'm done with treatment.
That's right. And that happens through a series of autonomous agentic products, that we build that work together inside of a platform, right? That is centered around just advocacy. And that's what I meant earlier when I said that advocacy was not something that could be done at scale.
Yeah.
Because it requires so much expertise and it takes so much time for humans to talk to humans, to talk to humans, who talk to humans through every aspect of the process. And you can't ever exclude the patient, right?
Right.
And so Tim's got to be included in this.
All right. Just, to have the Resolve AI app, you walk in, they're listening to your doctor's visit, and then an alert pops up on my phone saying, hey, this may or may not be covered by insurance. This is the follow-on question that you need to ask right now. I mean, it's endless.
That's right. And so that is our focus, right? I mean, like when we think about what are the next products, it's what products serve patients throughout the kind of food chain, in the process. And one, too, that I think is equally powerful, Tim, is when you are in shock, right, from some diagnosis that you never expected and you don't know what questions to ask. Forget the insurance, right? Or remember, right? How do you have some partner in that is objectively taking notes, listening to the physician, and then sharing that information with your loved ones so that you're not having to have the same conversation about your diagnosis and prognosis with your 4 children, or whatever.
You probably signed some sort of agreement before you even years before you were diagnosed with someone or something that you're now liable to pay for this because you signed a document saying I'm okay with paying or whatever.
Yeah, and your assignees, not just you, buddy. Yeah. So,
Crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know we're at time. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah.
This has been a really fascinating conversation.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Quickly, has me close everything out.
Yes.
You came back to Virginia Beach. Is there food of the region? Is there a food that you're like, I need to come back to Virginia Beach because I need to have this food?
She crab soup. So I grew up with loving to eat, blue crab out of Chesapeake Bay. So I love she crab soup. I also love our local oysters. Our locally sourced seafood is so amazing to me. And quite frankly, Virginia Beach is an underrated culinary scene, in my opinion. I mean, what we are like within an hour's drive of like 70% of what you might need to find locally sourced to have a fully balanced diet. It's just amazing. I mean, we can eat hyper local here, hyper fresh, and have amazing food. So
There you go. Michael Woodhead. Appreciate it.
So
thanks, guys.
Great.
Appreciate it. Thank you.